Good evening and welcome to this month's Whiskey Me live tasting. I am your host, as always, Tristan, co-founder and director of Whiskey Me. Very happy you could join us on this miserable evening of weather. What better thing to be doing than tasting whiskey virtually or in person? We have two fantastic whiskies that we're going to taste this month that you maybe are already familiar with if you've already opened your pouches or your bottles. We're going to start with that boutique whiskey company, 12-year-old Speyside. We're going to bring in Dave, who is the boutique whiskey company ambassador. And then in around about 15, 20 minutes, we're going to move on to the Quiet Man with Michele. And we'll be talking about that fantastic Irish whiskey, the 8-year-old single malt. So hopefully you've got your glasses ready, got questions ready, got your palettes ready, and we shall proceed. So we're going to start by bringing in Dave. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
I'm fine.
Good evening to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
Yeah, good, good.
It's a very wet evening here in deepest mid-Bedfordshire, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's wet everywhere in the country right now, which does make it good whiskey tasting weather, in my opinion.
Indeed.
Oh. So this month is the first month that we have ever sent our members, I think anyway, a mystery whiskey. That's to say, I mean, it's not a mystery that it is a whiskey. It's just a mystery which distillery it's from. And we've kind of shaped the Scotch single malt subscription in the way that we supply a different distillery every month, different expression, and we talk a bit about the distillery. So this is very much going off-piste for us by featuring one of your new whiskey expressions, which is your Speyside 12-year-old. And it's off-piste because you're not divulging where the whiskey is from.
No, we're not. No, this is actually the very first time that we've actually been speaking about this 12-year-old Speyside. It's a first showing sort of thing of our new core range of whiskies that we brought out just a couple of weeks ago. We introduced them at the Whisky Show in London just 2 weekends ago. Yeah, that's the first ever showing. They actually went live on Monday this week. So yeah, this is.
I did not realise we had such a scoop with this. Well, look, props to Tom, my business partner, then for getting it in so quick, because it's always good to have a new launch, this is obviously fresh off the printing press.
It very much is. I mean, they've been sort of underground for a month, but yeah, we launched them at the Whisky Show on the first weekend of October, and then they went live last Monday. Today's Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah, last Monday they went live. So it's a collection of 5 whiskies. Now, boutique whiskey's been around for 11 years now. We have bottled whiskey from right around the world. Some of them are unnamed. Some of them distilleries are hidden that we're not allowed. Some of them we have, we've been told expressly we're not allowed to name it, and we don't. Sometimes we're not allowed to name it, but we're allowed to give clues, which we do. So the clues will be on the label. But with our core, we haven't named any of them. We've got a core range of whiskies, which are just sitting behind me. It's an 8-year-old Islay, a 12-year-old Speyside, an 18-year-old Highland, a 30-year-old blended grain, and an 8-year-old Canadian, because Dr. Whiskey is Canadian. So yeah, I've wanted a core range for years, and I've been asking for it. And to get a core range together, you need to be able to buy a lot of whiskey. It's an expensive business having a core range. A, you need to have a lot of whiskey, and B, you need to have a lot more whiskey behind that to do the second batch. Simple as that. And what we're offered in the Scotch whisky industry, as you probably know, is the distilleries that are releasing whiskey to the brokers and blenders is fillings. So stuff that's just been put in refill casks. Very little of it goes in first fill or sherry or anything. It's all refill. It's for fillings. It's for the blended market. And so even if you buy a lot of whiskey and you have a lot of access to these contracts for fillings, you've still got to do something with it afterwards. So it takes a long, long time for us to get a core. We've been talking about it for a few years. So yes, what have we done? Well, we bought some Speyside whiskey and we put it into first fill. So it's a single malt. It's all from one distillery. And our Speyside comes from a marriage of all new Oloroso casks. So we basically rewrapped all of our fillings from this distillery into Oloroso casks, and we ended up with it's really our first lot of 70 cl bottles as well, because we will still do the small batch. If you don't know anything about boutique whiskey, really we're all about small batch, single casks, whiskies from around the world. But we wanted a core, and everyone has sort of everyone should have a sherried Speyside in their whiskey cabinet, a PT Isla, and that's why we ended up with this collection of whiskies for our first core release, really to sit alongside our World Whiskey Blend, which was the first core that we put together.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I imagine a lot of our members will be familiar with your bottlings, because you've done, I mean, it must be hundreds over the last 11 years, so many different expressions, and often annual releases of the same kind of expression as you get access to new casks and that kind of thing. And of course, the labels are fantastic with the cartoony kind of drawings. I think we share quite a lot of the same sensibilities in terms of how whiskey should be packaged and marketed. That is to say, it's about being fun and flavoursome. And clearly, we don't hold back when it comes to bright colours and slightly cartoonish packaging either.
Yeah, well, Emily Chappell has been the artist for all of our labels right from the beginning. For this core series, we wanted to have a little bit of a nod to tradition, but we also wanted to put that fun in. So we did pick the iconic stag, and then we made our stag get from a young buck fawn at 8 years old and get to the 30-year-old. And Emily's just captured the faces beautiful on there as this deer growing up right across. The colours of the labels where we're running across here actually come from a colour palette of the Northern Lights. So it's a CMK colour palette of the Northern Lights, and it's really because it's all Scottish or Northern Hemisphere whiskies, and thought, well, let's put that on there as well, because I think Northern Lights, we had a lot of fun discussing a label brief for this, and we had lots of far out stupid ideas, but we ended up with the stag, and then Emily took it from there. So the colours all from the palette, the colour palette. If you Google colour palette Northern Lights or something like that, you get this little CMK file, and we use that to bring those colours in. Why 45.8% ABV is another thing that people will ask. Well, it's as close as possible as we could get with the old Imperial 80 proof. What all whiskey was bottled, well, much of the whiskey bottled in the 60s was 80 proof. So that's why we went for this 45.8. It's another little geekiness on there as well. So yeah,
nice. And pretty close to 46 as well, which is quite a popular bottling strength, isn't it?
Yeah, I think 46 is sort of the rounded up 80 proof.
Yeah.
We just took it to another level. Yeah.
I've actually just remembered when you're talking about the labels and everything. One of my claim to fame is that I'm on a label, a boutique label.
Indeed.
Yeah. That we did quite a while ago with you guys at our whiskey bar, Black Rock in London, and I think there were maybe a couple of releases of it. Castbridge 52 or 53. It's one of the oldest bottles I've done, I think.
It is absolutely one of the oldest. Yeah, 52, 53. I think we bottled a 53-year-old Girvan. The two Castbridge batches were 52-year-old. Probably one of the harder grain distilleries to get hold of, especially nowadays. Closed in 83. So yeah, the likelihood of us finding another Castbridge anytime soon is pretty slim. But yeah, we had two batches of that. Yeah. We've still got a couple of bottles lying around, I think, over at Black Rock, which is nice. So anyway, the whiskey itself. I mean, this is. Let's get into a little tasting of it, because I guess the Oloroso cask is going to kind of, in some ways, maybe offer some red herrings up as to where this is from, because I mean, you intentionally want a sherried Speyside, but some Speyside distilleries are perhaps more famous for sherried whiskey than others, and it might lead us down that particular garden path when in fact that might not be representative of this particular distillery. I know it's not all about guessing the distillery, by the way, but that is a fun part of this, Yeah, absolutely, it's a fun part, and always. Everyone wants to guess those those distilleries whenever. I mean, we buy a lot of whiskey, and there have been times when we don't even know what the distillery is. We have bought the whiskey, casks of whiskey, completely unnamed, whether it's a single cask, whether it's a whole batch of casks, completely unnamed, that we are not allowed to know what the distillery is. That's been specified by the owners of the cask, and the brokers offer to us. And so we have no idea. And it is just sold to us as a single malt or a teaspoon malt, and we're not allowed to know. So there's no name at all. All we're given is a region. In fact, our 18-year-old is very much like that. I have no idea where that comes from.
Interesting.
But, yeah. You go and do a bit of homework. I mean, I go straight into the homework part of it and think, okay, where could this was distilled then? Where could it have come from? You look for those changes. When there's something unnamed like that, you do look for those changes. Now, this is from a working distillery in Speyside. The likelihood of being able to buy lots of bulk liquid, it's one of those ones that is feeding, straight away, it's one of those ones that are feeding the blended Scotch whisky market. It's one that makes a lot for filling. So, and we've just tuned it with some Oloroso because we've been working with access to good sherry casks for quite a while now. A long time ago we were doing it with Darkness range, but when Sam Simmons, our head of whiskey, came on board and our cask buying, we as soon as we got our bottling plant up in Edinburgh sorted out, where we had control, we started getting control of our own casks. And when we got that license that we could blend, when we could re-rack, when we could actually store casks on site, when we had those proper licenses to be able to do that, lots of things changed at BTK. Yeah.
Cool. So the whiskey itself, I mean, it's definitely sherried on the nose, right? I mean, that's I wasn't aware actually until you said it just then that you re-racked it and put it into Oloroso casks, but certainly it smells like a sherried whiskey. It's got all that kind of stuff we'd expect to find, the dried fruits and so on.
Yep, the earthy nuttiness. It's a quite a robust malt to start with. It certainly is a robust malt. I'm putting it into sherry for that time.
It has that kind of slight meatiness to it, I would say.
Yes,
that you get with certain Speyside malts,
Yes, it's quickly becoming a favourite of mine. Yeah.
What's it? So remind me what we're selling this for. It's under £50 a bottle, right? For a 70 cl. Is that correct?
This one, yes, I think you're right. I'm just having a quick gander at that myself. The Speyside is £45 a bottle for a 70 cl. Yeah, the range is the thing with the deer is deer, not deer. So we start with the young buck on the 8-year-old Isla, so just a young fawn, and the Speyside gets a little bit older. Got the lovely blue label on the Speyside, and so the deer's got a few more points. He's looking a little bit there's a tag on the ear that says Speyside, like a cattle tag. The 18-year-old is from the Highlanders, sherried and peated, and he's looking a little bit grumpier, a little bit grayer. He's become the sort of the not the monarch of the Glen. I think this one is the monarch of the Glen on our 30-year-old.
Old man,
and he's grey and pissed off looking, and I just love what Emily has done to that. We wanted him to look really old and grumpy, as Sam keeps saying, modelled on me, grey, old and grumpy. But I think the range is from £42 for the Isla up to 85 for the 18-year-old and 75 for the grain, and then the Canadian slips in there at £37 a bottle with the moose on, which just makes me laugh every time I see.
That's brilliant. Love that.
See this moose on the label.
That's great. I love that. That's really cool. Nice.
So all of them exactly the same. 45.8. That's the game plan. We're just pushing the Isla. Obviously has done pretty well. The Speyside's done pretty well as well, and we're just pushing the button for bottling the second batch.
Nice.
So these are small. These are small.
Well, Well, we're selling it through our website as well, and I believe we sold out really quickly, actually, of the stock we had. But we're getting more on Monday, so if anyone wants to buy it through us, and our members get a discount code as well, then they're welcome to do that. In fact, I think it's showing back in stock now, and we'll be dispatching again from Monday. But I think it's really good value, actually. I think at that strength, and especially, we're coming up to the time of year where I want to be drinking sherried Speysiders, or maybe Peaty Islers, stuff that's more robust and pronounced in flavour. And this, I think, fits the bill really nicely.
Yeah, it's something, like I say, I wanted when I first started working for Boutique and was doing the shows up and down the country, and said, we were pouring away some great whiskey. I said, I need a core range, and just bring these special ones out every now and again, because we're always going to be bottling those special whiskies going forward, bringing a collection together of whiskey that we find interesting. But at the same time, we want a core range to bring new people to explore Boutique, because Boutique is a little bit out there for a lot of people. The label, B, the bottle size, and C, distilleries that people may never have heard of. There's little distilleries from Germany, from France, from Switzerland, from Australia, from right around the world that we find really interesting, and just need that new group of people coming in and exploring Boutique through these core range, and thinking, and going onto the back and hitting the QR code and thinking, okay, let's see what these guys are about, and perhaps picking up an Australian whiskey or an Austrian whiskey or a French whiskey, and thinking, these guys do this, then maybe the other stuff isn't quite as wacky as it sounds.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm gonna put up some tasting notes, or just some comments and things for us to look at. Just one question while we kind of look at some of these. Do you ever feel like there's a danger that there's a certain section of whiskey, people who appreciate whiskey, who perhaps think you don't take things seriously enough, like the kind of tongue-in-cheek labels and stuff maybe doesn't, for them, have the sort of level of seriousness that they expect? Perhaps they're kind of quite stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have that all the time. In fact, I just had I did a tasting this morning at 9 o'clock this morning in Australia for 6 amazing whiskies: 25-year-old Clynelish, 25-year-old Ben Nevis, 40-year-old blend. And I put the labels up there, and this guy came back from and said, "Call me a snob, but I'm really not a fan of these modern art labels. I like, my whiskey collection is, part of the decor of my house," sort of thing. Okay, well, that's fine. That's okay. It's not for everyone. I like to drink whiskey, not show it off.
Yeah, all right.
I like drinking whiskey.
Yeah. Well, this has always been our approach to it as well, is that actually you ought to be able to sort of challenge some of the stereotypes and tropes of how whiskey should be presented, so that you can spend more time focusing on what it actually tastes like, rather than what it's presented. And that's why with us, we just went as simple as possible, and garish colors and all that kind of stuff, because we're all about flavor. And sometimes pretty packaging can be misleading or get in the way of what a whiskey actually tastes like. And if anyone who's done blind tasting will be able to appreciate how important it is to be objective about flavor, and to try and remove as much of the environmental factors out of what whiskey tastes like. And in a sense, that's what we're sort of doing at Whisky Me, is like we're serving it out of a plastic pouch, because we don't want you to think about the bottle, we want you to think about what it tastes like.
Aye. Well, you've always been about, I remember going the first time I ever went into Blackrock, all your whiskey is sorted by flavor, always been about flavor rather than the status of the bottle. Yeah, I'm not one for packaging. As soon as I get a bottle of whiskey, the packaging goes straight into the recycling. I don't keep any of the boxes. I used to put them all back in the boxes. It used to really annoy me. Oh God, I've got to get them out. And so now when I go around other people's houses, friends' houses, when they're not looking, I mix. If they've got them in their boxes, I mix them all up for them. Just so don't invite me around and leave me with your whiskey collection, because I won't drink it all. I'll have a good go, but I will mix it all up if you keep them in boxes. Just to, it used to.
I thought for a second then that you were going to say you decant all your bottles into like a plain bottle, which would be an extreme. Oh dear. Right. One little housekeeping question there. That is our bad, Conan. No, it is a 70 cl bottle we are selling. We will change that on the website. So it's you're only doing it in 70 cls, right? This new range.
Yeah, this new range is only 70 cls. Yeah, all of them 70 cl. All of them never chill filtered. They are just 45.8. They're always going to be available. They're blended in small batches. I think the first batches that we blend were all about just over 1,000 bottles on this run, and we're just about to push the second run now.
Nice, cool. Right, Dave, thanks so much. That's very insightful and interesting to hear about what you guys are up to, and I do think the whiskey is genuinely really nice. Cool. We're going to bring in Michele now from Luxco and Quiet Man. Hey, Michele, how you doing?
Not too bad. How's it going, guys?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you getting here on time.
Yeah, well, I literally just got in, so I'm sorry if I keep you waiting. There was actually a slightly delayed, but I'm here.
You're all good. You didn't keep us waiting, but you did have me worried and on my toes. But you got here in the nick of time. So
well, I predicted slightly delayed. Every time I go to Italy for work, even for vacation, but for work especially, it's always a slightly delayed. It can be between half an hour to 1 hour. That country is not famous to be on time, so I wanted to predict that. And luckily I was right, but it wasn't that bad. So it was only 20 minutes late. So I literally just got in. I just give a quick stroke to my cat. I left the baggage there. I grabbed the bottle and I'm here now.
Cool. Well, I've got my pouch and we've got 40 or 50 people watching who've got theirs too. So let's get into it. So maybe you want to start by telling us a little bit of a background about the brand. Is that a good place to start?
Yes, yeah, of course. Well, to be fair, it's one of the most simple, straightforward story that I know. And that's what I like about it. It's really relatable. I believe, I actually met Dave a couple of occasions with Georgia from the Soul Whiskey Club. But, I know your background, Tristan, and I know then we share that in common. We are men from hospitality. We remember the smell of the mop closing the bar, and the lime peel, and the leftover beer keg and all of those smell and all of those, it's kind of part of who we are. And when I was talking with Kieran, the owner of the brand, he told me that's exactly how I woke up, in the morning, or that's what I remember, especially growing up when I was even, too little to work behind the bar. I remember going there for my father. I remember the smell of, the beer, the wood of the bar, and, all of those sound, all of those smell, which, it just, in a way, we share all in common. And the Quiet Man is named after, his father. So Kieran McVeigh is the guy that actually created the brand, but then we have his father, in the background of the bottle, and the story is quite straightforward, but it's quite incredible if we think about it. Back in the day when hospitality, it wasn't really as established as slowly it's becoming now, and being 50 years behind the bar in Belfast in a time when it was actually quite hard, quite dangerous as well to run a pub. It wasn't really a recommendable area. And Kieran told me some story, then I don't know if I can share it, but at one point the family was in danger because there weren't nice people around. But his father, carry on running the bar, and never give up. And for 50 years, he kept running this pub, which was famous, there, even because a lot of people were coming by, get drunk, even dangerous people, and they were kind of telling secret, and they knew that they could tell him secret because he was known in the area as the Quiet Man, so he was a true gentleman, and a true hospitality man. So whatever you say behind the bar, stay in the bar. There is no judgment, and he was the guy that didn't tell a tale. So that's the story behind, which I think is it's quite relatable to me. I like the fact that the son created this brand in honor of his father, and it was, for a bartender, aspired by a bartender, and just purely what it was, the true gentleman behind the bar, the bartender code, which I want to believe, we still respect today, and it's mainly about hospitality and looking after people, from a pint of beer to an amazing cocktail, still there.
Yeah, I mean, there's been obviously so many new brands of not just whiskey but gins and all sorts hitting the market over the last 10 or 15 years, and so many of them, well, all of them, require a backstory, and oftentimes these are family stories, and those are the ones that are the most interesting, I think, because you're kind of learning a little bit about someone's history. But this one, as for me too, does resonate because it's about a bartender, and that's my background as well. And yeah, the story of his father and the troubles in Northern Ireland, and no doubt the people and the conversations he was exposed to during 50 years of bartending. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
You don't get many people do that these days. It's incredible. So, and I think it's just nice to see a brand that's a kind of tribute to, I'm sure he wasn't the only one. There would have been many bartenders, not just in Northern Ireland either, but all across the world, especially in dangerous areas and dangerous times in dangerous towns, who would have been privy to information that they can't share, and really, in a way, in quite a dangerous profession, risky, and yet, continue to do their job and get their head down and serve their customers and offer hospitality. So it's nice to see that recognized, I think.
Yeah. And, it's just about simple hospitality, which is really the key of this, and this is exactly what I fell in love with. I grew up, with my family is from hospitality as well. I 13 years old, I started to work in a hotel. What I actually liked about it was the fact that you look after a customer, sometimes you need to pretend you don't see things. Working in a hotel, there is a lot of things that you wish you didn't see. But it's a matter of, becoming that person that they know they can trust, and especially you have every sort of people there, they're starving, so they are not particularly friendly at that moment. People then, they just want a pint of beer, and they're left alone. People then want to talk, and, they're looking for someone to listen. And that's, for me, is the base hospitality. This is all, what it's about, through bartender code, the gentleman behind the bar. And, Kieran, which on the website, there is this beautiful video when he talk about his father, which is really touching because, you can see it's a real person, extremely humble, down to earth. And it's, just an unpretentious brand and talk about a real story. And yeah, as I said, it's close to me because I know the person, I know it's real family behind, and it's quite good.
Yeah. So Quiet Man doesn't have its own distillery at the moment, so the whiskey's being sourced. So this is the 8-year-old single malt that we're drinking this month. So what can you tell us about this particular whiskey in terms of how it's made?
Well, I can tell you, being a single malt, triple distill, we have different whiskey for different flavor profile. We have the blend and so on. So we don't necessarily get our whiskey just triple distill. We even have, double distills, depend on what we want. And sometimes, especially in the blend, that is quite high malt. We tend to use double distill to actually express a bit more grain, give a bit more character to it. The distillery is kind of a standby project at the moment. We might reopen that chapter later on. But to be fair, the idea behind that, and the idea that Kieran had in mind as well, it was to don't actually have a limitation in terms of following one recipe for one production. We had different versions. We actually had quite a long, version of limited edition, special finish, and different source from different places, which allow us to create every time, a profile that is different, being a bit more open on that sense. With this one here, I honestly, can tell you that is aged and bottled in Derry, Northern Ireland, which is the first whiskey to be bottled there after 100 years, but it's not distilled in Derry. So consider that it's triple distilled, and it's sourced, and it's not distilled in Northern Ireland. I kind of narrow it down for you, but again, they don't disclaim it, so I don't want to as well.
No, that's fine. That's okay. And 8 years old bourbon. I mean, for me, it's got this fragrant note to it. It's somewhere between like floral, honey, and then slightly almost like orange soda kind of aroma to it. It's quite sort of bright and fragrant and really nice.
I think you actually just nailed exactly what I feel when I smell it. On the smell, just on the notes, there is a lot of floral notes. I honestly think between honey, marigold, there is a bouquet, almost like even a bit of jasmine on the tone, but it's really delicate on the nose, and on the taste, it doesn't necessarily match that profile. It's still, really follow it in a way, but it changed.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's so sweet, so sweet. Like remarkably sweet, in a good way, but just like spooky sweet. I still get a lot of that sort of floral too, like almost violety, and orange. I think it's really, really interesting whiskey. Kim put up a good comment here. I'm showing up. The Quiet Man is true to its name, a quiet sipping whiskey, light, sweet, flavoursome. Just sit and enjoy.
Well, I appreciate that.
Good summary.
I think on the taste, you got a bit more like almost like cream wafer to it. Almost like biscuity to it. And it can go almost like marzipan, if you like. There is a lot of sweet notes, as you mentioned. Then it might have to do with the finishing first fill bourbon cask. Obviously being production partnering with Loxco, we have a lot of bourbon that we can spare in terms of cask, and then definitely can help a lot to with
another one. Well, and that vanilla sweetness as well that you get through is very likely to have come from there. Again, I think we're in line here. Andy's saying, love this one, surprisingly bright citrus with something else that I just can't put my finger on. Palmer violet. I think you have put your finger on it, maybe. That for me, anyway. That's there's definitely a bit of that in there. Yeah.
Wow,
really
now
interesting.
I can really feel the light.
Yeah, very different to the boutique dram we just had, which is much more of that sort of sherry, nutty, like more robust kind of characteristics, where this one, although it's the Quiet Man, feels that much more effeminate, almost like fragrant and floral and all that sort of thing. Really, really interesting whiskey, I think.
I wish I had a dram of boutique. I'm a big fan of what you guys do. I think the Quiet Man is like as it's been mentioned, it's an everyday whiskey, but a really nice, easy, sippable, enjoyable whiskey, that you can have in front of you. Boutique brand, they tend to surprise me every time. The dram, I'm not necessarily gonna have a bottle of boutique whiskey and just finish it in front of a movie. I kind of taking a special occasion every time that I open one of your bottles. This one is more like an everyday, really. It's not meant to.
We just brought a load of everyday drams to the table, so that's what we were sipping today. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've had some Quiet Man Irish whiskey. I must admit. I mean, it must be a good 4 or 5 years. Yeah. It hasn't always been triple distilled, has it? I'm pretty certain it was not.
Yeah, we have some double distill. Then we use, especially on the blend. Consider that it's really high malt. The blend. But the 8 years old, yes, it's always been triple distill. There are some really exciting for the brand that I'm not sure I can share yet. But keep an eye on it because the brand is changing. And it's developing or something that is a bit more outside the box. What I like about it is they actually are now embracing the fact that it is about bartender. It's designed from a bartender for bartenders. So they wanted something that is not yet in the market. So we're working towards doing something that is not yet, hit the market, even in terms of category, let's say. So we are going to be a bit more experimental. This one here for me is it's playing safe because it's what a traditional single malt Irish whiskey will taste like. There are some citrus and floral note, and are a bit unusual. On this sense, I get that citrus that is not always there. But this one here is just, as I said, an everyday sipping whiskey. We might come out with something a bit more experimental in the future, different.
Interesting. I'm going to guess whiskey bitters. That's my guess.
I'm not gonna compromise the brand of myself. Tristan, please stop.
All right, cool. Well, look, guys, that's fantastic. I mean, it has been an interesting month for Whisky Me because we've done one boutique whiskey where it's an unnamed distillery, and the Quiet Man is a source whiskey, so we don't know exactly where that one's made. Though there have been some clues tonight as to where that might be. But I think it just goes to show that it doesn't necessarily matter because both of these drams are fantastic, I think, in their own right. Quite different from one another, different occasions maybe, use cases, but nevertheless delicious. And really, nothing lost from not knowing every single detail about how the thing is made. So it's nice to sort of do this every once in a while, somewhat of a blind tasting in a way, but a delicious one at that.
Well, I completely agree on the term of, for me, it's flavor first. In terms of production, technical detail, and everything else, it's nice to know, absolutely. But if there is great flavor and there is even a good story, that help, and either boutique, and the Quiet Man, I think they both nailed it on that sense.
I always used to do my tastings blind. I was the one who would rip the labels off and make custom labels for the whiskey club that I was going to, and would always do them blind, not to catch anyone out, but just to take away those preconceptions. And it was the only way I was going to get an English whiskey into the Glasgow Whiskey Club. And I did. And I lived to tell the tale, but they still remind me of it every damn time. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, gents. Well, thanks very much. Hope you have a good rest of your evening, and thanks everyone for joining in. Cheers.
Thank you.